I'd like to call the Newman City Council regular meeting of April 25th, 2000 to order. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, God, for bringing us here safely tonight. Please give us the guidance and the wisdom to make the right decisions for our community. In this we pray. Amen. Amen.
God bless Tom.
May we have a roll call, please?
Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Present. Item number 5, these are communications from the staff. Is there anything tonight?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Item number 6, these are items from the public. These are non-agenda items. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the Council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public at this time. However, California law prohibits the Council from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Are there any non-agenda items?
Thought I'd go ahead and approach the porter here, Mr. Mayor, to the council. E. Timothy Parker, for the record, 1321 Pointer Way. I just had a couple of comments that are not on the agenda. I was kind of prompted by several of my neighbors by something that was brought to their attention in terms of the tartaric plant, and I'd just like to state a couple of things for you to take under consideration. One of the concerns that was brought to my attention was in regards to the new process that they're going to be using there at the tartaric plant, and it was asked whether or not the cover ponds for the backup, is there a possibility that they're going to be able to keep the odors from leaving the plant area with the cover ponds in the event that they overflow. And additionally, the new process that they're using to intervene, the current soot and buildup that they have, can that process begin underway prior to their taking the steps for whatever they're going to do with once they reopen? So in other words, what they currently have out there at the ponds, the question was asked whether or not this new process can that already be underway for what's already still there. So that was a couple of the questions in terms of that. And just one other focal point, and I would stand corrected if necessary, but I understand that they are going to look towards new operations sometime coming up in September, which we all know kicks off our annual fall festival around the first week of September. And so one of the concerns that was brought to my attention and asked for me to address was if in event that is the case, precautionary measures so that our city will not have the odorous smell that we know that occurred in the past during that particular time. I mean, our city flows with a number of people. I invited a number of my family members here, and that was one of the concerns in terms of the odors, which I know that this council and the city has very well addressed since the plant has been shut down. That's it on those concerns. And then the other comments that I had personally, I wanted to state in terms of the recent fun run. Although the inclement weather kind of held a few people at bay, I think that it's imperative under those type of events that the city continues with those type of activities. I understand that was the third year. That was the third time that I believe that I had been out, and I think it's a good thing for the city, and I just wanted to state that. And additionally, I'm encouraged by what I see with the theater marquee. I've invited several of my out-of-town friends to come out for the May 6th event there, and I'm pretty excited about that. I saw Councilman David Reed out there doing some actual painting himself, and it's encouraging the work that's being done there by Ferris and her husband and the persons that are taking an action for getting that marquee back together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to address the
Sure.
tartaric issue? We'll go ahead and let her speak first.
Good evening. My name is Sabrina Hurst, maiden name Smith. I live at 516 Merced Street, Newman. I have three things I want to talk about. First, about the lawn and my dog. As I moved in within the first week of apartments of the address I just said, I got a ticket for my lawn by the manager when I moved in. The manager, Curtis McLean, we recently got a dog and had followed all the rules, and he said we didn't ask for permission when in fact we did. I have an appointment tomorrow at 2 p.m. to implement our dog into the lease, in which he also states the dog application was incomplete when the eligibility specialist said only for me to fill in only that much. Personally, my feelings on this issue is one of harassment and dishonesty on the part of the Housing Authority of Stanislaus County Department of Modesto. P.S. I called Carol Duran of HUD, and she said that it was okay to have a dog and to fill out the forms for a dog. And the second thing I wanted to talk about, did anybody have any questions about the dog and the lawn? Second was about my doctors. Since I moved to Stanislaus County these last 6 years, I was treated by a doctor, I'm not going to name any names, by a doctor in Stanislaus County for a blood disease. And then after a month, the doctor left town for the month that he had treated me, and I put the medicine and shot method in my arm. And then I was referred by another doctor, and he also left town. So these doctors are treating me, and then they're leaving town. And because of that, my left hand, these three fingers, are down for the count. I've already had an injury, and the medicine just made my arm collapse. I have to operate now with these two hands, and the doctors are nowhere to be found, and Medi-Cal does not reply to my calls and complaints. Third, any questions about the doctors? Third, my kitchen water smells like sewer water for the last month, March, April. That's it. This is my contract to my apartment. And this is the pet policy. And here he's been neutered, has all his up-to-date shots, and his dog license. Thank you for your time.
We'll get a response back to you, Sabrina.
Thank you. Are there any other non-agenda items? No? Okay.
You want me to respond?
Sure.
I'd like to just respond briefly, if I could, to Tim Parker, because I was going to bring some of that up at the end in my city manager comments, but I'll do it now in case anyone leaves earlier than the end of the meeting. As far as the first question, and correct me if I get some of this wrong, Timothy, in understanding your questions. As far as the ponds that are there, they will be emptied out and will be used for an overflow type situation. The covers that are on the one pond will remain on that pond, and therefore any overflow that they have will go in under that cover, which should theoretically should take care of any odor problems that would come from that. Was that the question on the first?
Yes, it was, and just it was sort of a two-pronged question. The second half of that question was, the latter half was, this new process that they're speaking of implementing, will that be used to clear those ponds?
Okay, let me answer that part. The new process that they're bringing in is called using fluid bed dryers, which actually, as I understand it, basically heats up the water to a point where it evaporates. Okay.
Right.
The problem with that is that the old water that they've used from the old process has so many solids in it that it would not work in these new fluid bed dryers. They did actually try it. They took it and tried it on some of these fluid bed dryers, and it does not work. That was my first question to them too. Is that an easier way to get rid of this water? Their comment was that no, they've tested it and it will not work under the new process.
So in other words, for that remaining sludge, they're going to have to use the old process with the spray system?
The spray system is what they're proposing, and they, just to let everyone know, they did run, it was supposed to be a 24-hour test. It did not actually occur for 24 hours, but they did run a test. They did get one complaint, the air district is what they said.
Okay.
That was from someone who was actually driving by, and so it was on Hills Ferry Road. based on that, the air district is looking at probably giving them the okay to at least proceed forward at this point under the new guidelines of using the sprayers to get rid of the water.
Do they know how long that will take for them to
They're saying
eradicate
3
that?
to 4 months to get rid of it. My
So-
understanding there's about 14 million gallons of water out there that still need to be disposed of. Their goal and their hope is to get rid of that prior to the new September, which was your other question which you asked, which is when their new season would start up. Their season runs with the wine season, the grape harvest, basically. So as soon as the grape harvest starts and they start bringing in material, then they can start up again, which is normally around September.
Okay, that answers the question.
As far as in relation to the thing that I would emphasize is that we are monitoring it very closely, and the fact of the matter is, if there are odors that come into the city again, they'll be stopped immediately. I think that was one of the primary concerns I
also.
think that we have the force and the system in place now that we can, it won't take us 6 months to get them stopped. We
Okay.
can get that shut down quicker this time if it becomes a problem again.
Okay.
It's our understanding that the ponds will no longer be used. Once they're empty, that's it. They will no longer be used.
And so under their new system, those ponds are eradicated totally, as far as use. Okay.
And we have these assurances from Mr. Bennett that he came down for the first time that we've ever talked to him. And he assured us of certain things, and we have it on tape, so.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is items from the public. These are agenda items. Any member of the audience desiring to address the council on a matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step to the podium at the time the item is announced by the mayor. In order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing the council will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the mayor of the council grants a longer period of time. Item number 7, these are public hearings. Item A is to adopt resolution number 2000, next to number, a resolution approving an application for funding with regards to economic development allocation of the state community development block grant program. Cleve?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, a few months back, the Council authorized staff to begin looking at we actually received a CDBG grant, a planning and assistance grant, to bring in someone, a consultant, to look at a couple of different options as far as economic development. One of the issues was to look at a revolving loan fund. The other issue that we didn't have all the details on at that time, but wanted to look into a little bit more, was also economic development grant in terms of doing infrastructure to benefit economic development. We did hire Quadnoff to come in and do the study, and I'm going to have to apologize as I stumble through this. I have Carrie, and I forget your last name, Carrie, but she is with us tonight from Quadnoff to answer any questions and explain a little more of the process if you need to do it. What I wanted to do first is just let you know what my recommendation is. Some of the council may know, I believe Mayor Marquez was here, Councilman Bradford, you may have been also, when we actually looked at doing a revolving loan fund previously. I believe it was about 3 years ago. And at that time it was determined that we did not want to go into this. And the reason is there are requirements as far as using this money or making good on the loan and the grant that you get money, or you end up having to turn the money back into CDBG or to HUD, and it can hurt your chances of getting grants and loans in the future. However, not forever, but it can immediately after that have an impact on your ability to get those. We've been actually very successful in getting grants, as you know, through CDBG for our rehab grants, housing rehab grants we've got. I believe we're on our 3rd one now that we received of $500,000, and we've been using these very successfully in the city. So those have worked very well for us. We're only eligible for $870,000 a year. We have received 2 planning and technical assistance grants now of $35,000 each, and then we did receive the $500,000 rehab grant. So that cuts us down to only $300,000 that we are eligible to apply for right now. So we looked at this. Basically what we did on the revolving loan fund is we came back that it is a possibility that we could do it, but somewhat the same conclusions that I think the council came to before, as far as there is a little bit of a risk there, as there is with the other program, and I'll explain in a minute. The other factor that made us look a little bit more at the infrastructure grant program is the fact that SCEDCO now has a revolving loan fund in place also, which we have access to, or businesses in our community can take advantage of. Based on those factors, after looking at Quadnoff's report and the things that they did, it was our recommendation on the staff that perhaps the economic development was the most feasible, the infrastructure grant was the most feasible of the two. So we reviewed this a little bit more, and I'm going to try and explain a little bit about how this one will work and some of the concerns that we have, because there is somewhat of a risk with this one also. And then Carrie may need to jump in here to help me out with it, because she's the expert on it. But we do have to, as part of this grant, we would get the grant, and let me just explain what we're proposing to do is use this grant to extend L Street down into Merced County to the end of what would be Brazo Road extended, which is where our industrial park is planned to end, down on that end. What we need to have in order to do that, first of all, one of the things that will help us I guess we don't necessarily have to have this, but we probably won't get the grant without it. So would be to have not necessarily a commitment from a company that they're definitely coming, but that they are committed to entering into negotiations with the city to try and develop some of those properties down in that area. And we do have, I've got 3 businesses right now that I'm working with that are, I think any 3 of those would be willing to write us a letter to that effect. So I'm fairly confident that we can do that. Of those businesses that come in, the employees that they hire, they have to be 51% of those have to meet the low mod income requirement. So that's one of the things that has to happen. For each $35,000 of grant which we receive, we have to hire 1 employee. So essentially $300,000, we need approximately 9 employees that would have to meet that category, and 9 employees that we would have to be bringing in. So those are some of the things that we have to be aware of in looking at this. And we would, if we didn't meet those requirements, obviously with this one, we would be getting the $300,000 up front in order to build this road, to extend this road. And then if we do not perform on the grant, or if we do not bring in the business within a certain amount of time, then potentially they could come back to us and make us reimburse the monies or the grant which we have. Now, they want us to succeed. They want us to be able to perform on this grant also. And so they're, I'm sure, going to work with us whatever they can. And, you know, if we're close, we have some real potential, I'm sure that they would be willing to work with us somewhat. But so that is where the risk is involved with this type of loan, or grant. It is not a loan. But I felt in looking at it and with the potential of the companies that we're currently working with, that we have a real likelihood that at least one of these companies is going to come in, and it'll probably only take one to meet the requirements based on the employees that they have and what I've talked to. So with that, Carrie, did you have anything? Did I cover that close? Anything you'd like to add? Okay. With that, I'll take it back to the council for review and questions or recommendations.
Do I need to do that?
We do need to read that
Wanna
in
open
and
the
then
public
open
hearing?
the public hearing.
All right.
Yeah, so,
So read it in first.
yeah, it'd be fine.
Okay. Well, before we get to the questions, I'm told that I have to do the public hearing address here regarding this application. The City Council is holding this public hearing to discuss the city's application for a 2000 Economic Development Allocation Community Development Block Grant. There's a sign-in sheet being passed around in the audience, and we would appreciate if you would acknowledge your presence by signing it. The purpose of this public hearing is to review the CDBG program in general and to more specifically describe the activities proposed to be included in the city's 2000 application prior to submittal. As reported at the July 13, 1999 public hearing, the City of Newman is eligible to apply for a maximum funding of $870,000 in a single year from the general and economic development allocations, but not more than $500,000 for any one application in 1 year. Eligible activities include, but are not limited to, housing rehabilitation, improvement of sites for assisted housing construction, community facilities / public services, public works, relocation assistance, expansion of industrial and commercial property, and historic preservation. A $500,000 general allocation application was submitted by the city in April for a housing rehab program. The city is still eligible to apply for up to $300,000 under the economic development allocation. Invitation to comment at the public hearing or submit comments in writing to the city was issued at that time. No public comments were received. The CDBG program is designed to meet the national objectives of benefit to targeted income groups, targeted group households, including low-income, minority, handicapped, and elderly, to eliminate slums and blight or to meet other urgent community development needs. Funds may also be used to support administration of the grant and activity delivery tasks. Citizens in attendance are encouraged to ask questions and to express their viewpoints. Written comments are invited to be submitted by the City of Newman, City Hall, P.O. Box 787, Newman, California 95360. The public is also invited to inspect the citizen participation supporting documents on file at City Hall located at 1162 Main Street in Newman, California 95360. All City of Newman CDBG programs are implemented in ways consistent with the county's commitment to fair housing and equal opportunity. Applicants are not and will not be discriminated against on the basis of race, color, ancestry, religion, national origin, sex, marital status, or physical handicap. The activities under consideration for a $300,000 economic development application include financing of 1, the development of industrial zone property owned by the city, or 2, the implementation of a small business revolving loan fund. In the industrial park development, this project is to finance development of city-owned industrial property to include roads, sewer and water extensions, curb, gutter, sidewalks, and lighting. The completion of the infrastructure is anticipated to be accomplished within 1 year of meeting special conditions of the grant and will ready the property for prospective industrial users. Under the revolving loan fund, this is a small business low-interest loan program designed to assist businesses by providing gap financing. Loans will be made available to qualifying businesses in the amounts from $5,000 to $100,000 at 3% interest for terms up to 30 years. The program is anticipated to be in place as soon as grant special conditions have been met. The intent of the CDBG economic development allocation is to provide public benefit by creating or retaining permanent private sector jobs to meet the national objective of benefit to low, moderate income persons. At least 51% of such jobs must be filled with low to moderate income persons. Both programs require agreement by the benefiting businesses to provide a minimum of 1 job for every $35,000 of CDBG funding infused in the project/loan, at least 51% of which will be from the targeted income group. So those are basically the guidelines that need to be followed on this. Okay.
Open the public hearing and then bring it
Sure.
to council.
Being that this is a public hearing, I will open the public hearing for comments or questions.
I'm encouraged by what I've just heard. I just had a couple of questions, and one was under the time constraints for which the city must comply in the event that the grants aren't used or for applicable reasons that you gave with the $300,000 for the industrial area or the business loans. I heard you say give a 1-year term. So with that, under the explanation that Cleve gave as well, in the event that those funds aren't appropriated as such, the city would be responsible for repaying or reimbursing those grants if they aren't used within that 1-year time frame? Is that what we're looking at?
I'm going to ask Carrie to answer that. She went through them with me on the phone, but I'm sure she can explain it much better than I can. So if you would.
Why don't you come
yeah,
on?
please,
Yeah.
Carrie.
And if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Carrie Diltz, and I am with Quad Knopf at 5110 West Cypress in Visalia. And we were hired by the city, as has already been explained. And to answer your question very directly, is we anticipate construction can be completed within a year after grant conditions are met. But you have 24 months in which to provide the jobs from the beginning, from the time the grant is signed, and until the clock starts ticking. And HCD people, at that point, it doesn't become a yay or nay or what do you call it, all fail. They come down and visit you and work with you because the whole grant is for 30 months. And you have 24 is the first milestone that they want you to meet your job standards that you've set, which is one job per 35,000.
Are there any other comments or questions from the public, being that the public hearing is open? Okay. If not, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for questions and comments and direction. Are there any questions for Carrie?
No, this is provided that we come up with 112,500.
Yes, and we do have money set aside for economic development in the redevelopment agency. It was my proposal. That's why this is also scheduled as an RDA item tonight to approve those, make a commitment of those funds, matching funds out of RDA. Now, I wanted to explain that Quadnoff had their engineer do their estimate on that, and then we had our engineer do another estimate, not another estimate, but just compare and look at what we've done. And his estimate actually comes out to 361,000, which means that our commitment would be approximately 61,000 rather than the 112. And it's just a matter of they're actually working in another area and possibly costs are different and et cetera. And so we just verified those. So the amount is a little bit less that we're anticipating as far as our share of the funds that would be needed.
And then when you mentioned the target income group, like if you had 9 employees, then 5 of those must be TIG, correct? That's
correct.
Okay,
That would be right, yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Looking at the information that we were provided, the study area extends far beyond L Street. I know that all we're talking about this evening is the L Street extension for this grant, but we can come back again then next year and we'd be eligible for another 870,000.
Is that, yes, about a year from now is when that we would be, yeah.
Every year.
So,
Well, if I might add on that.
yeah.
Just because the HCD is going through public hearing process of its own right now, and they are considering several alternatives to their funding allocations, one of being that jurisdictions would be allowed to apply every other year as opposed to every year as it has been since the beginning of the program. That has not been established yet. So at this point, you are allowed to apply for 870,000 every year.
So long as we meet the criteria.
Correct.
Wow,
And keep doing such a good job that you've been doing with it.
great. That's all I had. Thank you.
Cleve?
Did you finish the public hearing?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. One point that was brought to my attention, in case the council was interested, is whether or not we can meet that targeted income. But if you saw the table 1 within the report, those limits are really pretty high. For example, for a 2-person household, it's 42,000 is what they're allowed to make and still meet that targeted income group. Or a 3-person household is 47, 1 person is 36,000. So I think that in this area that we can do pretty well in meeting those requirements.
They're very generous in their
Yeah.
the amounts of
Yeah.
income.
So, sure.
If I might address that, it's this is the median chart that is allowable for this area. 80% of that is actually the targeted income
Oh, okay.
group, so it's a little less,
Okay.
but it's still very generous.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Can we have some direction on this, please?
So I move we adopt resolution number 2000, next number, approving an application for funding, the commitment of local match, the execution of a grant agreement, and any amendment thereto from the economic development allocation of the state CDBG program.
Second.
Oh, change the number.
So you want to make that 61 instead of 112 in section 3?
Okay. Amending in section 3, the amount of 112,500 to 61,000.
Thank you.
We had a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you again. Item number 8, this is the consent calendar. Item 8A is approval of warrants. Item 8B is approval of the minutes of the April 11th, 2000 regular meeting. Item 8C is approval of proclamation declaring May 7th through May 13th as National Tourism Week. And 8D is approved resolution number 2000 next to number, a resolution in support of the Fair Competition and Taxpayer Savings Act initiative. Actually, since I wasn't at this meeting on the 11th, if we could pull that one and act on it separately, I won't participate on that one. Is that?
The minutes, item B.
Okay.
Yeah, since I wasn't at that. Okay, so if we could move the adoption of A, C, and D.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And then item C, item B, I'll ask, I'll step aside on this one if Councilman.
You can
oh,
still be the motion.
Okay. Can we have some direction on item B then?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0 with one non-participating. Item 9, this is to adjourn to meet as the Newman Redevelopment Agency. May we have a roll call, please?
Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Present. Item 9B, this is a resolution number 2000 next to number, a resolution approving application for funding and the commitment of local match for the economic development allocation of the state CDBG program.
I move approval of resolution number 2000 next number, a resolution approving an application for funding, the commitment of local match, the execution of a grant agreement, and any amendment thereto from the economic development allocation of the state CDBG program, amending section 3 to read $61,000 rather than $112,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item C, this is to commit funding of e-commerce assessment in conjunction with Stanislaus County and other cities in the county for a cost of $500. Cleve?
You have the information on this. The county has requested that the cities participate with them in a study, and they're calling it Connected Communities, which is basically to look at how we can become, in Stanislaus County, what's the correct terminology, up to par as far as technology-wise, so that we are ready to receive high-tech industries and et cetera, and be able to respond with the businesses we have, even to be able to do the things that we need to. And so they have given us this and asked, actually the first meeting is tomorrow morning, which I am planning on attending to participate in this study. They have requested that we participate with a contribution of $500. I have talked to our finance director, and she has checked into this. This would be an appropriate use, she has stated, for economic development portion of our RDA funds, because it does affect us economically in being able to respond to business needs and being able to technologically meet their needs. They have set up a steering committee and, as I mentioned, invited me to sit on this. I have checked with a couple of other cities in the county. I have not had a chance to speak with all of them, but the ones that I spoke to said that they were planning on participating in this and paying this amount. So with that, I'll take it back to the county. It was my recommendation that we consider paying the $500 and participating in this.
Did they change the meeting date? Here it says Thursday the 27th.
I think, did I write it down wrong?
The
or
first
is that-
meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 27th from 8 a.m. to 12 noon.
Yeah, it's the 26th.
Oh,
That's
okay.
my fault. If you look on the letter on the next page, I just wrote the date wrong. No problem.
Are there any questions for Cleve?
This
So we pay $500 and City of Modesto still pays $500, all of them are,
Actually, City of Modesto,
1,000.
the larger cities are paying $1,000, the smaller cities are paying $500.
okay, the way the report was written here, it
Yeah,
looked like
that's
everyone
that's
was.
my mistake.
And the county's paying 2,000.
County's paying 2,000, and as I understand it, the Great Valley Center is contributing the remaining amount up to the 20,000, which is approximately $12,000 for the study.
Which is a 12, right? Because I know in the letter here it says that they're asking, that they're willing to, let's see here, that they're willing to match it. I see it says there. And I know the totals here from the cities and the county only come up to 8,000. So I just,
Yeah, I think what it was is it says the Great Valley Center agreed to fund a majority of the cost if the county and cities would provide a match. So it wasn't a 50-50 match, it was just some matching funds.
you know, the only thing, and I know that, you know, that we always need to get additional information on some of these things, but, you know, one of the things that I had read in here where it talks about, you know, we're going to provide a vision as far as, you know, how we want, you know, the future of the valley to look at, and I guess the thing that bothers me just a little bit is that we've done so many studies, you know, between all the cities in this county and the county on, you know, we've been going through this visioning process for the last couple of years. We've been, you know, talking about all these different things, and, you know, it just seems like we've always got this study that comes up all the time for, you know, $20,000 for this, and I don't know. I guess it bothers me. I just, you know, just with the experience here, we've had so many studies here in Newman that have sat on the shelf for so long. I can imagine, you know, how many other studies are sitting on the shelves across the county, and you know, if the Great Valley Center is willing to pay for more than half of it, and I know $500 is a small price to pay, but I'd really like to see something concrete come out of this. I just don't want to have us come back a year later and have some generic study brought back to us that, you know, that pretty much tells us what we already know. I mean, we know that we don't have the necessary infrastructure in place as far as communications, and, you know, I mean, like I said, we know that already, and it just seems like 20,000 could go a long way towards actually putting some infrastructure in, instead of continually telling us what we already know. But
we know that being on the west side, we going to get the short end of the stick anyway, so there aren't enough.
Well, I look at it this way, we're not going to be able to do it by ourselves. That's a known fact. I mean, there's no way that we can do it sitting our little selves. We got to go in with other people, other cities, and develop county-wide a program so that we can be part of it, because without that, we're not going to have industry come into our city.
But we
And-
also, go ahead.
And that's why I say you need to have this program, and I don't think it's so much as just a study. I think it's also trying to find out how we're going to do this and implement it. That's the way I look at it.
The main thing is to try and convince the providers to provide the service over here. If they don't do that, then
Right.
there's nothing we can do about it.
But if you go in strength, it's better than we going as our own little selves.
Oh, I agree.
So,
well, that's my comment. I hope something good does come out of this. I mean, I know everybody's, you know, going in on this with good expectations as far as what's going to happen. That's the only thing I could say is I hope a year from now this is another study that just doesn't sit on the shelf and we say there was another $20,000.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Mayor. That was my big concern and why I checked into it with other cities and seen what they were doing. My main concern with it was not so much what we might gain, even though that is a concern. Hopefully we do gain something from this, but what we already know, being down in the corner of the county, that we, you know, are sometimes not noticed down here by the county, and if we're not involved with some of these things, what we might get left out on, because if we don't look out for our interests, I'm not convinced always that the county will remember that we're down here. So that was my concern, is to make sure that we're not left out on something if they do make something happen in Stanislaus County. So.
Any other comments? Okay, Can we have some direction on this, please?
Make a motion, we commit funding of e-commerce assessment in conjunction with Stanislaus County and other cities in the county for a cost of $500.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item D, this is to consider allocating funds for equipment lift for theater sign renovation. Cleve?
Well, if you've had a chance to look down Main Street the last 2 days, or 3 days, I guess, about 4 or 5 days now, hasn't it been, David? You'll notice that there's been a significant amount of work going on down there. In fact, they pretty much finished up the north side of the sign today, and it looks really nice. It catches your eye when you turn down Main Street now. David Reed, as part of the theater board, came to me last week, and they had been trying for quite some time to find a way to get a lift actually donated or at a discount price or something in order to be able to do the painting and do the work that they needed to do. They were unable to get that done. The theater board went ahead and rented the lift that they needed, but due to their shortage of funds, they've come back and requested that the city consider funding this. We have got this listed under RDA because that's, if the city does decide to fund this, that's where we would recommend that the funds come out of as part of funds that we are putting into the improvement of the theater.
I have a question, Cleve. In reading this, I'm trying to figure it out. Is that it was for a lift that was used a couple weeks ago, or they have a lift out there now?
That's the one. It's the one being used right now.
Oh, so you already know what the cost is?
Yes.
Before you're finished with it? So it was a set fee
We had to
then?
give them a check before they would drop it off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they estimated 5 days is what it would take them to do the work. I believe they've actually got 1 day extension because it broke down 1 day on them, and this was the cost for 5 days. Is that correct, David? Yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
No, just a
Oh.
comment that I have is that I'm in favor of something like this because I think the city needs to be involved. In talking to a couple of the merchants, the theater itself has brought them business just by the sheer numbers of people coming over and seeing what we have here. And I think we need to be involved with the arts in our community as a city.
Bob?
Bob Naboa, 1045 Ruth Avenue, and I would encourage you to fund this. I think it's obviously a worthwhile project. And the one comment I would have, and this is certainly not a criticism, and if I'd seen Ferris off of that thing, I wasn't going to climb up there to tell her about it. But I happened to cross Main Street this morning, and when I looked north to see what was going on at the theater, I noticed that the arch, that curved part on the back of the marquee, is almost invisible. The color of that blue matches the sky. And so it is such an important feature of that marquee that I think you need to look at that tomorrow and rethink that color. I looked at it tonight, and it looks okay tonight. But during the daytime, it disappears. And unless you're going to do something additional to outline it or bring the detail of that shoulder out, I think we're missing the boat.
Could you mention that to Ferris, Bob?
I want to be there. Sure, you're more than welcome to be there. I would I appreciate that a lot of thought went into that. I looked at the color schemes prior to it being started, and it looked great to me. And how many times have we painted our own homes only to look back and say, gee, if I had it to do over again, I would have picked a different color. Because I didn't realize on that scale it would look the way it does. And the first thing that struck me was, that's the most important feature of that marquee. You can't see it against the blue sky.
About what time of day was this? I'll look
All
at
day
it
long.
tomorrow.
All day long. Because I checked it about 2 or 3
From
times.
Fresno Street up.
Looking north. Yeah, looking north. And see,
a
when you
valid
look
point.
south, it has shadow to it. And so it highlights it. But when you're looking north, the sun is directly on it, and that blue matches the sky beautifully. I was stunned by how much lack of contrast there was. I obviously think it important enough to bring it to your attention. And as I say, it's not a criticism of who picked out the color schemes. I think sometimes you need to stand back about a block and look at it.
I'll
I'll call
try and
Ferris
bring
tonight when I get
down.
home.
No, we gotta see her in person.
Mike will go with you.
Yeah.
I'll talk to her tomorrow.
Ferris and I get along real well, real well.
I'll talk to her tomorrow and see if I can get her down there to.
Yeah, have her come down and we'll both stand on the corner and look at
Because
it.
you know, Ferris, you can't tell her anything, but she sees it for herself.
Just tell her to watch tomorrow night.
Yeah. But, I wasn't gonna yell up at her and I wasn't gonna climb that thing, so, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now, how many days of this thing did we say we needed? How many days of rental did we need on this machine?
Well, we have tomorrow yet.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow's
Tomorrow's the
last
last day.
Right, yeah.
Tuesday, okay. Are there any other comments?
Well, I just want to ask David one quick question. It says, it's my understanding that the theater board could pay for this cost, however, it would take funds from other planned projects, such as?
It would take it from the neon, which is actually why we're painting it, so we can get the neon up there. And it would take away from those funds, so we'd be short that money for that.
Can,
Oh,
$2,747.54.
I move that we approve a budget amendment in the amount of $2,747.54.
well, actually, I'm sorry if
Oh.
I can interrupt you for a second. Is that one more day going to be enough time is to finish this?
Yeah, it's virtually finished now. That was
Basically done, yeah.
we planned it so it would be done today,
Okay.
but since they gave us that extra day, there'll be
So
some.
the extra day will
we'll
be
use it
all right?
tomorrow for
Okay.
finish.
Okay, sorry, Tom.
From RDA bond funds.
a second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, let's see here. Okay, item 9E, this is to adjourn to reconvene to regular session. Item 10A, this is to appoint the appointment of Francisco Santana as Poet Laureate for the city of Newman. Cleve?
At the April 11th meeting, this item was brought up, and council asked me to go back and look at it to see whether or not this was an appropriate thing for a city to do. I did a little bit of research on it, what I could. I'll admit I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this issue, but I did find that there are several states who have poet laureates, and as near as the city of Modesto, in fact, they are currently taking applications, and I included that copy of that application in here, that they're receiving applications to appoint a poet laureate. City of Modesto actually appoints them for a specific term and then takes more applications and appoints other people from time to time. There's certain requirements. They have to have some of their poems published and have to have speaking ability and some things like that. They have to write a poem specifically for at least one event, if not more events, that and then present that poem at the event. I looked at that and I thought, well, I'm not so sure that we can start a program like that. I'm not so sure that we have that many poets in town that would, in the small city of Newman, that would apply for something like that. But my main point was to bring this back and say that I believe that there's nothing wrong with the city council appointing a poet laureate if they would like to do so. One option may to be considered, rather than making it a permanent appointment, that you do something for a period of time and limit it to say that, you could do this again at another time if it came up for another person, or maybe someone can only do it for 2 terms or something like that. So there are some options in that way that it could be done. With that, I'll give it to the council. I will admit I read through some of Mr. Santana's poetry, but I'm not a poetry judge, so I'm not going to judge anything else other than just whether or not it would be appropriate for you to appoint a poet laureate.
Well, to begin with, I'm not opposed to Mr. Santana receiving this honor. I just think that maybe we haven't gone about it the right way. Maybe we need a committee. Maybe if we're gonna do it right, it's gonna be an honor. It should be done with some guidelines. I don't know, it's just my general feeling.
Okay. I looked into it a little bit. A poet appointed to a similar or honorary position or honored for artistic excellence. A poet acclaimed as the most excellent or most representative of a locality or group. There is no pressing need for a poet laureate. It opens up a can of worms, because then how about an author laureate, a singer laureate, a physician laureate? There is no one in this community at the present time that fits the description of a laureate, and that has brought great distinction, upon our community. So if you feel you need one, then open it up for others to apply, as Modesto has done. I've had several phone calls and encounters on the street from citizens, all saying that we don't need a poet laureate. And we're not really a big arts and science center, so I really don't, I don't think there is a need for it, so that's my comments.
Any other comments?
Well, I kind of have to agree with Councilmember Martina. If we were to decide that we need a poet laureate, and I'm not convinced that we do either, we need to have experts. I don't know poetry. I know what I like and what I don't like, but it's just like wine. What someone else likes, I may not like. But, there needs to be some criteria for deciding, and you need experts involved.
Right.
Perhaps university professors or other poets. And it does need to be opened up to others in the community. We've got a lot of talent in the community, and perhaps there are others out there that need to be considered as well. That's just my comments.
Dave, any comments?
I just feel that we got a lot more important things to do than this. I agree with Mr. Martina, and to an extent Tom also, in the fact that if we start with the poet laureate, we could have other things going down the line, and just tie up things that we really don't need to do.
Well, to go back a little bit here, what the city of Modesto is doing, they have this, the City of Modesto Culture Commission, and they basically take applications. That's how the city of Modesto does it? Well, and
Well, they have the arts and sciences over there.
mhm.
They already have all that in place.
Well, we do
They have
have,
the symphony, and
well, one of the things we are trying to do with our theater, though, is with the arts and everything, and trying to promote the arts.
Well, yes, as a performing arts center, yeah.
Right.
And which doesn't preclude someone coming down and reciting poetry or whatever, but we have no arts council as such in Newman, as far as I know.
I just think that if we did something like this, I agree with Cleve that there should be a time limit, and so it's like, once someone has been chosen for this honor, it shouldn't be something that lasts a lifetime.
no, like a year.
Well, yeah, and then, of course, if we're going to do something and it's going to have any meaning to it, I think it has to be done right.
Mhm. Well, I'd like to see us at least take a look at at the very least, maybe looking at a nomination form here, like the city of Modesto is doing. And in terms of, what I'm hearing here as far as, a term, I'm looking at the clipping that was here in the Modesto Bee regarding the poet laureate over there. It was for a certain term and date certain. I would like to at least see us, take a look at doing something with regards to, an application. I know Mr. Santana has been interested in, seeing who else in the community is interested in something like this. We're, like we've said, we're trying to do the thing with the arts, with the performing arts, and, I think anything that promotes the arts or promotes, this type of thing with readings, poems, readings, and so forth. Anything that we can do to promote this type of activities with arts and so forth in town, I think is beneficial to our city. And at the very least, we could at least, see, what type of interest we get here in town in terms of applications.
Well, I kind of agree with Bob Martin also in the fact that we don't know anything about poetry. So if we're going to have some applications, let's have somebody come in and judge as to the content.
Okay, well, let me ask this. Now that we're going to get going on this, you know, we've been going on this, the theater with plays and so forth. And I'm not sure if I remember this. I know Stanislaus County has their arts commission. Is that something that the city, the performing arts has looked at maybe establishing as far as an arts commission in the city?
I don't think that's been approached yet.
No.
We're not that big.
There's
We did a
there's the
while
Newman
back, right,
Performing
Judy?
Arts,
We,
but
Judy mentioned that at one time in the past, we did have the West Side Arts Association. And I think that might have been a variety of arts.
Yeah.
Written and,
There certainly ought to be people in our community that could participate on a panel, would be willing to, and to look at the different applications and what they submit. I'm sure there's a lot of school teachers out there that have a good background in this area.
is that something we could look at then in conjunction with possibly, I know we had in the past that West Side Arts Association. Can we possibly look at, revisit that in terms of who was involved with that and look at possibly setting up some panel of some sort with regards to these different,
and establishing specific criteria for consideration, such as an original work that highlights something about the city of Newman, or a publicly presented presentation. It talks about the need for public speaking skills, as well as being a published author, to present poems written especially for an event or a variety of special occasions involving the city, in this case of Modesto. But I think we need specific criteria as well, and open it up to the entire community.
Right. Just like we have a lady that lives here that has written several books on Westerns.
okay,
We've got, we've got lots of people in this town.
okay. Well, if we can't at least go back then and take a look, through the past involvement with the West Side Arts Association, and at least attempt to set up a panel that looks into this type of matter. Is that all right with the council?
Yeah, and develop some guidelines as far as,
Do we need formal action on that, or?
No, there's no motion.
I don't believe
Okay.
so.
All right, so we will bring that back then. Item 10B, this adopt resolution number 2000 next to number, changing the project for which LTF funds are used, which were obtained through the trade of STIP funds with the city of Ceres. Cleve?
As you may recall, in June of '99, we approved the agreement which traded state transportation improvement project funds to the city of Ceres for LTF funds, which are much more flexible. Within that agreement at that time, our STIP funds were designated to the Inyo Avenue project, and we subsequently shifted that in order to make it more flexible for us. And therefore, we want to designate these funds for the county overlay project, which should be starting any time now. And so in order to do that, we need to adopt this resolution stating that this is what they'll be used for. Obviously, the Inyo Avenue project is still going to be done in the same time frame. It doesn't delay anything. It just means that they will be, the funding sources are switched a little bit to make it more flexible and easier for us in processing those funds. So that's basically it on this.
Are there any questions for Cleve on this?
This happens all the time, doesn't it, around the state? People trading their different funds?
Sure. Yeah, and we already traded, you mean as far as what we use the project for? Yeah, it's not uncommon, it's just that the way this one worked, we had set it up and then we negotiated this trade with Ceres for these funds, which worked better for them. And in the long run, it just worked out better this way, so.
Any other comments? Okay. Can we have some direction on this item, please?
Make a motion, we adopt resolutions number 00, next number, changing the project for which LTF funds are used, which are obtained through the trade of STIP funds with the City of Ceres.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 10C, this approve the placement of stop signs on Patchett Drive at T Street, making it a four-way stop. Chief?
You're on, Mike.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Basically, this started out by I received a letter from residents in the area of the intersection of Patchett and T, and I then received a subsequent letter from the principal of Von Renner School regarding the same intersection. What we're looking at there is basically we have it's a two-way stop right now on T, which covers the north-south, and now we're looking at an additional stop signs for the east-west direction. If you look at this this intersection in the morning, I can tell you they have 970 kids, I believe, that go to Von Renner, which is a year-round school. So this is not a problem that's going to be. It's a year-round problem, is what it amounts to. And basically, this intersection, the way it works is from about 7:15 in the morning till about 8:10. It's like ground zero. There's every parent wants to get their child there. What we're looking at this point is we have a lot of kids that are crossing on that T Street, Patchett and T, and it's not regulated very well, and it's we also have it where there's a lot of cars that are parked on either side, which also decreases the visibility on that roadway between T and S. In the afternoon, they have the school crossing squad that takes care of on S Street, but we still have kids that come down further and cross at this particular intersection here. And although I did not see speeding, it looks like it is an area that speeding would be something that could be reduced, or at least it's not curtailed at this point. I do believe this is something that would enhance this intersection, and it would create a good safety barrier for our kids that are trying to get to and from school. Also in the afternoons, I was also finding when I went out there and researched this, it was not only the elementary school kids, but we also have the kids from Yellow that come down, and some high school kids that come down T Street, and there's that walkway that goes behind along the school that gets them into the Canyon Creek area. So it is an area that does get a lot of use, particularly when the kids are coming to school and going after school. So I looked at various ways that we could increase the safety in this particular intersection. If you look at the intersection too, it's painted yellow, which means that's a school crossing. So it's I think for our safe way to school to and from, I think this four-way stop would be something that we really need to put in place, in my opinion. That also is going to be in conjunction with education with the school. They're going to try and do an educational component of this, and I will also do enforcement with this also as far as the police. I'm also, Cleveland and I kind of talked about this, touched on this a little bit too, is anything with like a new stop sign, especially where this one's particularly going to be located with the children there. We're going to look at educating the public too with news release and doing something with the school, putting out a flyer to educate the parents that there is going to be a stop sign going in there, and so that everybody's aware of this the stop sign going in, if you choose to approve this. So we're looking at twofold here to make sure that we educate and enforce, and with that we'll have a fairly safe intersection, I believe. And I'm open to any kind of questions you may have.
Any questions?
Yeah. When you put in the four-way stops, are they going to have school crossing guards at that corner? Do you know?
No, they will not. One of the things that I had talked to Mr. Paiva, the principal of the Von Renner, is basically they also have to have line of sight of the kids, and that particular intersection does not allow line of sight. They can see the kids at S Street from the office, and so that's one of their protections they have for the school crossing staff.
Well, they're saying they're trying to get the kids to cross more or less down at S Street, where the crossing guards are.
Right.
And then also at the corner of this new corner.
Well, actually, they would prefer that all kids would cross at the S Street intersection, but that's in real life that is not happening. That's the problem. It's not totally happening. And so they're going to try and educate to keep the kids going to S Street. But I think as an extra safety measure, that's why I'm looking at this particular stop sign.
I wasn't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard-
Caught me
maybe
right in the middle.
there was- Okay, sorry.
In the comments in here by Lieutenant Caton, it says that they're trying to get them to cross at the corners. However, that the teachers are setting a bad example in crossing in the middle of the block to get to their cars. Is that going to be policed also, or?
That's going to be something on the educational thing that the Principal Pive is going to address.
Okay.
Do you see a need for some sort of a flashing yellow light for a while? I know up in Gustine they have some sort of a portable thing that they put out in the mornings when the kids are crossing the street, and they pull it in the when school's in session. And,
That would be good if they actually had a crossing guard there.
but you'd need a crossing guard in order to...
I would, well, that's how they operate there, is it's a mobile unit.
Mm.
And I think if we just had something that wasn't manned or at least watched, it would probably fall to being hit or damaged.
I'm just concerned that for a while, after you, like you mentioned, after you put in a new stop sign, people don't know it's there, and the kids know it's there, and they can't tend to cross,
That's correct.
thinking all the cars are going to stop for them, and someone doesn't
Well, that's
notice.
why I say we're not. This is something I'm going to work in conjunction with our Public Works Director and make sure that the public is well educated before, and we're confident that the public is well educated before we actually put that stop sign in. Plus, then I want to make sure we have enough manpower to be able to put a person out there to make sure that people who run that get stopped. And so we enforce that. The school enforces it through a more positive, and I guess we take it through a more negative enforcement. And hopefully between that we'll be able to educate the public to the point where we don't have those kind of problems. So.
I think we,
Yeah, well, anytime we put any kind of stop sign in, there is a warning factor. We usually give at least a week or two where warnings are given out.
I think we had red flags on the new stop signs as they were put up for like a month or so so people could actually see these flags fluttering at the same time that were mounted right on the stop sign.
We did that?
Yeah.
The other thing that I'd talked to Mike about that I think may be feasible to do is simply putting a Public Works barricade out there prior to the four-way stop with a caution four-way stop sign mounted to it in the interim until, for like say for the first couple of weeks while people get used to the fact that that is there. So that I think that's something else that we can probably look at doing.
Well, when you put your other stop signs up over here, you had stuff on top of them so that they stood out.
Yeah.
We'll be doing the
Little
same
red
thing
flag.
here.
Yeah.
We're just talking about added measures that we can,
Yeah.
just because of the location of where this particular stop sign is. And that's going to really slow the traffic that is in that between T and S too. And so if there are kids that still are not educated enough and they still cross, at least the speeds will be such that we'll possibly be able to use the brakes to avoid any kind of problems in that area.
Mike, are you saying that the police officer's presence will be there during the critical times?
Yes, I want to make sure, before I that's one thing that Ernie and I had talked about, is basically before we actually put these stop signs in, that we're looking at making sure that we have enough manpower to be able to have somebody there and dedicated to that during the times. Because we have two peak times. We're looking in the morning when the kids get dropped off and in the afternoon when they get out. The area is pretty dead in between that time. So I want to make sure that I have enough staff. I would not recommend we do that at this particular time because my staffing's a little short. So we'll be looking at coming back, but this is just step one. If we choose for approval, we'll make all these recommendations come to pass and make sure that the public's well aware and educated as to the location of the stop sign, and we'll back it up with the enforcement too.
Yeah, your presence there makes a big difference. I know the Highway Patrol uses that a lot now whenever they're doing any type of construction or there's a change in lanes or something like that. Their
Right.
presence are there. Usually they, light bars
It's
are on.
amazing sometimes just what a black and white unit can do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
How soon will this be done?
As soon as, like I said, as long as I can make the dedication for the personnel and things to be able to do that, I'm looking possibly within the month.
To put the signs up?
Yes.
Yeah.
It depends on, like I said, on Ernie's schedule and how he's going to be able to utilize his manpower. And then I want to be confident that we're able to do this with everything that I've told you as far as the newspaper and other things too.
Is there any time frame on the the slow down 35-mile-per-hour signs out on Hills Ferry Road.
Right. Ernie's looking at having something done possibly next week on that.
I turned left on the Hills Ferry up at Driscoll this morning, almost got run over coming out of Newman.
We're working on it, but he's also kind of short-staffed at this point, so.
Are there any other comments or questions for the chief? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have some direction on this, please?
I so move that we approve the placement of the stop sign.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Jim, come on up.
He lives in the corner.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, Jimmy.
I'm Jim Bell. I live at 2060 Street on the corner where you're talking about putting the stop sign. I'm one of the ones that signed that letter, and we've lived there for almost 11 years, and we've seen the traffic flow grow and grow and grow, and I just don't understand why there hasn't been an accident there and a little kid get hurt. Because the cars coming down there, particularly in the morning, and they going right into that sun, and they don't see those little kids because they're a lot lower than the heights of the cars are. And I highly encourage you to go ahead and pass this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, can we have that motion again?
Yeah, I so move that we approve the placement of a stop sign on Patches Drive at T Street, making it a four-way stop.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item number 11, these are items from the city manager. Cleve?
Couple items that I wanted to bring up quickly. First of all, as you just heard Mike mention that he is a little bit short-staffed right now. Those of you who know Officer Corey Brown recently left us, actually last week, to go to the Sheriff's Department. He will be sorely missed, a very good officer that we had. I did have the opportunity to interview Officer Brown before he left, and he was not excited to leave. I mean, he is excited to go work with the Sheriff's Department, but he did enjoy working here. I wanted to talk to him about issues. I will admit that dollars is one of the issues, but he did also admit to me that he's looking for, if you will, more excitement, which is good for us. That's what we like to hear. There's not the criminals that he's looking to catch out here in Newman, hopefully, and so that was another part of the issue. He wants to grow as an officer, and because we are small and do not have a lot of criminal activity here, he does not have all the opportunities that he would like to have the experience of as a police officer. So that is happening. And the other thing that I would like to mention, also in our Public Works Department, who is also having some problems staff-wise right now. Many of you know Doug Matoza, in our Public Works Department maintenance supervisor, underwent triple bypass surgery this past week, and he is recovering and doing well. He's out of the intensive care, and from what I hear, hopefully will be coming home this week. So he's doing well. I just want to report that. The last issue that I wanted to mention is, if the council recalls, last year when we went after CMAQ funds, we looked at two projects and we were approved for one, which was the Yolo Avenue project, which was subsequently we requested and changed the funding over to the streetscape. We recently learned of new funding up at the state, which is called Safe Routes to Schools funding, in which we are eligible for up to a $500,000 grant. There's two rounds. Initially, we were going to go after these funds in October. However, we learned from some Caltrans people that so were many of the Southern California cities looking at waiting till October. So, and that not very many people were going after them in this first round. Therefore, we felt that we might have a much better chance of getting this funding this round. So we are going to apply for grant funds to do the improvements to Yolo Avenue, which we had talked about earlier as part of the CMAQ funds. And as I recall, that was a difficult for the decision for council to decide to switch those funds, because that is an important project too. Basically, it will mean starting approximately at Fig Avenue going west on Yolo to widen and improve that so we have good bike lanes and sidewalks all the way up through that area, all the way up to T Street. So that is the plan for that street if we get approved for the funding. We're working with the school district to provide some letters of support and et cetera, and they actually have to sign off on this grant also. So That's all I have right now.
Is that the only part that's going to be included in that? Because one of the areas that I know we had looked at, we'd actually gotten some prices on, and, you know, something that, you know, as we're going to begin the work as far as purchasing all this concrete for the downtown, is something I'd like to see us at least bring back, are these sidewalks going down Driscoll before they get to Kern, you know, where they cut off, and you see a lot of the people out there, you know, pushing those strollers and walking out in the middle of the street. And, you know, just looking at the paths crossing from the west side, the east side of Highway 33 to the highway and across. I mean, at some point, I'd like to see us take a serious look at that. I mean, there's those areas that have, you know, lack of sidewalks for these kids that are walking
Sure.
across the highway.
Yeah, I believe, as I recall, we decided that we would bring that back up in this next budget year when we reviewed that, so we will plan on trying to program that in the budget for council's review this year.
Right.
I'm not sure that, I'll talk to our engineer and see if that could be programmed in with this
Well, I
grant,
just think we
but
could get
yeah.
such a much better price for concrete
Sure.
if we, you know, I mean,
Get it
obviously
all
it'll
in.
come out of separate funds to pay for it.
Well, and we
But rather
might
than-
can, sure. We'll
Yeah,
take a look at
rather than go on two separate applications there. I mean,
Sure.
if we can get additional, but segregate it out by the fund that it's paid out of, then we get a heck of a lot better
Yeah.
cost on that.
Yeah, if we get this money, it will not be until next fiscal year anyway, so,
Right.
yeah, we can look at that as part of it.
Anything else, Cleve?
That's all.
No. Councilmember Martina?
Yeah, I got just a couple things. Cleve, the weeds are still present in our town. I don't know if we have a program yet, but you look around town, it's minor, but then it takes away from our city.
Okay.
Laprina,
Yeah, that was brought to my attention, and we were looking at that. They may be on your next weed abatement list, so.
okay. And then there are some lots around town. Isn't there an ordinance where they have to plow at a certain time of the year?
Yeah, they do need to keep it down.
Being done now.
Yeah, so
Oh.
many of those may be in it's kind of an ongoing thing. You
Yeah.
did get the first list, there will be more lists ongoing. If you see locations, if you want to give a quick phone call to City Hall and give it to us,
Oh,
because
sure.
we try to get all of them, but we may miss some,
Oh,
so.
yeah. I thought about taking a camera and going around.
And Bob, basically on that too, I mean, it's just the ongoing game that gets played every single time. We send them a notice, they go out, and
Yeah.
it's just like the particular house right there on Fresno and P Street, I guess it is. You know, we send them out notices, we don't hear anything, they come out and we don't hear from them again.
Yeah.
We
Well,
just-
but it's like Laprina. They have the area there where they have their loading docks. There's an accumulation of water in there. There's a tire sitting in there,
Hmm.
and it's starting to look abandoned. You know,
Okay.
and it's like it's not very attractive. And anyway, so I just bring that up. The only other comment was, of course, it's already been said, but you know what Ferris and Dave have been doing down at the theater, and all those other people involved, is just tremendous. And just, I know if anyone's had an opportunity to talk to anyone that's worked down there, their attitude is just unbelievable. As far as, in fact, Dave was saying they can hardly wait to get back the next day to continue. So it's really a true love, but it certainly has done a lot for the town. I know you walked down there, and I told Ferris, I said, there's only one way to describe it. It's amazing how much a difference it makes in this town. But anyway, just a general comment. That's all I have.
Councilmember Applegate?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to congratulate learned counsel Tom Hallinan on his appointment to the Stanislaus County Fair Board. Congratulations. Thank you. And I have a thing with Mike. On the RVs, fifth wheels, motorhomes, have we changed anything? They seem to be cropping back up on the street again. I have a couple instances where one has been sitting there for 2 weeks, and a motorhome in the driveway for 2 weeks.
I don't think anything's changed, has it, Mike? If you bring
what I
those
said.
to our attention, we try to keep up on them, but if
They
there are
seem to
some,
be increasing again.
anytime you see one, if you can
Yeah.
make a quick call,
Just
or
bring it to our
we'll try to,
attention.
we'll try to
Okay.
pick up on it.
That's all I have.
Okay. Councilmember Radford?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Councilmember Reed?
I'd just like to thank all the people that worked so hard on this fun run. Unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate, and they did New Year as well as they thought they would, but I think everyone that was there had a good time. That's all.
Anything else? Okay, I'd just like to add a couple things here. Briefly, I know we're talking about, you know, some of these things that with the weed abatement and so forth. Have we, I know, gosh, this has probably been several years now when we had gone on our infamous bus trip through town several years ago. And one of the properties that we had looked at was this abandoned house over on L Street. And I know that it's set way back on the west side of L Street. We had talked about it years ago. We had, you know, apparently sent notices. We had, you know, gone through the abatement and everything else. And, you know, and like I said, it's been several years since that we've heard any follow-up on that. And I was just wondering if we could, at some point, hear back what's happened with that. It's been, gosh, it's been at least 4 years, I think. 3 or 4 years, I think.
Check into it.
The other thing is, I'll also, like Councilmember Reed, like to thank all those involved with the fun run this last week. Unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate, but I want to thank all the service clubs that were involved with that, and I know that all the proceeds will come back into the community and serve some good for our city. And finally, and Tom Applegate alluded to it a little bit, but I would like to read this release from the governor dated April 21st. Governor Davis appoints members to the Stanislaus County Fair Board, and as Tom said, our very own city attorney, Tom Hallinan. It says here, Mr. Hallinan of Modesto, and I won't say his age here, I'll spare that one there. Mr. Hallinan of Modesto is a municipal and special district attorney for Bush, Ackley, Millich, and Hallinan of Oakdale. He has worked for the United States Department of Justice, the Judicial Council of California, the Toxic Substances Control Division, Legitech, Bill Tracking, and Assemblymember Steve Peace during the '89 legislative session. Mr. Hallinan is a member of the California State Bar, the Stanislaus County Farm Bureau, the National Guard Association of California, the American GI Forum, and the Hispanic Leadership Council of Stanislaus County. And so I, along with the rest of the council and the rest of the city, want to congratulate you on your appointment to the Stanislaus County Fair Board, Tom.
Thank you very much. I like to feel that Newman has another member. You might know that the president's Bill Mattos. So, 2 of us on there now.
Oh, that's great.
And the other thing, I'd like to see if we can't send a letter to, when it's appropriate, to Doug Matoza to wish him a speedy recovery from the city, if we couldn't do that, and a card, please. Other than that, I don't have anything else. And do you have anything? If we can move for adjournment, please.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.